Julie Roginski is a Democratic strategist, and Guy Benson is political editor for townhall.com. Both are Fox News contributors. Thank you both for joining us.
Good morning.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too. Boy, isn't it?
For all those of us from Philly, yes, it is.
Now, I don't know if she'll be able to attract these other voters. I think that I know one thing. She's not going to really have a good voice next week after that speech. But she wasn't the first one to try to make this play for Republicans. We heard President Obama talk about Ronald Reagan. We heard Tim Kaine talk about his father-in-law, who is still a Republican. Will this work, Julie?
You know, it's an interesting appeal. If you look at the trajectory of the last 4 days of the convention, you had the first 2 days really focused on bringing in the Bernie voters, the liberals who were disaffected to some extent by her candidacy. The last 2 days were really about expanding that out and reaching out to independents and even disaffected Republicans. That's why you saw a former Reagan official say that he was going to vote Democrat for the first time in his life. That's why you saw General Allen talking about a very strong military, reaching out to those who may have voted Republican on national security issues but are now concerned about Trump. And so on and so forth, including the examples that you mentioned. So it's an absolute play that they're making. It's a conscious play. It remains to be seen if it works. But I think, you know, with the candidate that you have on the Republican side, there is opportunity for her to potentially pick up some disaffected Republicans who are concerned about his leadership.
Well, we know that both of these candidates have very high unfavorability numbers. Hillary Clinton specifically, her trustworthiness, people say 67%. They do not trust her. So this play that she's making for these Republicans and independents, Guy, is that enough to overcome those numbers?
Well, I think a couple things. Overall, despite some memorable dysfunction and acrimony, I think that it was basically net a good convention for the Democrats. I think she will get a bounce out of it. To your point, I think what we saw the last 2 weeks was each party make a pretty good case that the other candidate is unworthy of the office. Now, when you're talking about independent and right-leaning voters like myself, I think it was very clear that the Democrats made a concerted effort, especially in the back end of the convention, as Julie said, to try to appeal to people like me thematically. It was definitely intentionally done. The problem is when Hillary pivoted in her speech to her actual proposals, it was just almost exclusively a left liberal statist program that gave very little ideologically for someone like me to grab onto. Yeah,
except she actually switched it up on trade there and said something entirely different than what she had said during the entire primary season. And she's also making a play, Julie, for the white male working class voter as well, which of course Donald Trump is doing extremely well with. Listen to what she had to say there.
Democrats, we are the party of working people. But we haven't done a good enough job showing we get what you're going through, and we're going to do something to help.
Julie, we have more people living at poverty levels than ever before, and then we have more people on food stamps, I should say, than in the past 8 years. So how does she overcome that? Is she the candidate of change, or is she the candidate that kind of pulls from President Obama and continues to do the same?
Well, first of all, for her to win, she really needs to keep the Obama coalition intact, and that's the most surefire way for her to get over the finish line. But to the point that you're talking about, Guy, I completely understand what you were saying about the fact that she was talking about what you call a statist agenda. But don't forget, a lot of these white working class people are people who would benefit, for example, from a bigger infrastructure investment. They're people who've been out of work but would be put back to work if you had a more government investment by building bridges, by building roads, by using their skills that are not college skills, but skills that they may have learned in trade school to be put to use. So I think you can try to thread the needle. I grant you it is very difficult to do, but you have to go out there and explain exactly what you're talking about according to what you would call a statist agenda, what I would talk about in government investment.
She could use a news conference to explain some of that.
Hopefully Chris Wallace will ask her on Fox News Sunday to do that this Sunday.
See, but here's the thing. if she's talking about understanding the needs of working class people, I think that's a difficult thing to stomach from someone who hasn't driven herself anywhere since 1996. And the other thing is, the Democrats had an $800 billion bite at the infrastructure apple with the stimulus, and they failed.
Yeah.
So I mean,
All right.
there's a credibility problem.
Yep.
I don't think
Guy,
Trump has. I don't think
Julie,
Trump
have
has
to wrap
driven
it
himself
up.
either. Just for the
have
record.
to wrap it up for both of you, but thank you so much, and have a great weekend. Get a little bit of rest. I know
Thanks
you've been
so
busy.
much,
Thank you
Heather.
so much, Heather.
Bye-bye.